Musu got done with school and was informed by a nanny that his sister was doing well at home. After paying his regards, he overheard the nanny talk to someone about how pitiful his condition was with his sister being ill and his family passing away when he was a child. She also mentioned how Mu had gone insane 3 years ago. Mu, who was silently done with their talk, introduced himself. He was originally a 30-years-old mobile game planner who by some accident was teleported to this world. This world was real where people used techniques of self-cultivation and magic in all spheres of life. Here everyone was in a race to become the best irrespective of social status and economic well-being. Everyone wanted to be similar to the extremely talented cultivators in the West and East. Mu had the same goal. He wanted to be the master of cultivators. Ever since he had crossed paths in this world, he had started looking for the system and tools, and as a result had been caught on the pretext of being a crazy man. After 3 years in this world, Mu had still achieved nothing. However, he had made up his mind to get admitted into Shuzhen University and get a high salary job for the sake of his sister. He went back home to be embraced by his sister Little Leaf. Seeing her always filled him with joy. She brought out a cake she had made for him as it was their birthday today. Mu unraveled how Little Leaf had leukemia and ever since had stayed at home watching the news. This was her way of staying in contact with the outer world. The home savings were running out on her treatment, but Mu still found great joy in spending on her. Just then, another character arrived who Mu addressed as Fat Bird. He told Little Leaf to go inside, which bothered Mu as he was acting mischievous. When he asked him about it, Fat Bird revealed how the university admissions had gotten 40 points higher than last year, making it impossible for both of them to pass the exam. After Fat Bird left, Little Leaf observed how Mu had gotten quiet. Mu was silently depressed as he hadn't expected the university points to rise so high, leaving him unprepared. He had a score of 910, whereas a score of 940 was required for the admission. Wanting to increase his score in half a month was simply impossible. While he was quietly thinking this through, a status window appeared before him rating the QI technique he used every day, and the QI pills he had made himself. With sudden joy, he realized he had finally achieved a system tool, and wondered if it was because he had turned 18 that day. Little Leaf appeared in the kitchen to find Mu crying tears of joy, and questioned the reason for this. He shunned away her persistent questioning. While Mu was preparing food, he studied the system in front of him. He concluded that this tool was mainly for the cultivation knowledge he had learned and wondered if he could upgrade it. Just then, all the words entered his brain, and he was notified that now he could breathe out QI without any hassle. Mu was impressed by this and decided to teach it to Little Leaf as well. However, he had to get QI pills first. He went to the pharmacy, but was shocked to find his bank balance was $10,000 less than before. In frustration, he realized it must have been because he used the systems tool. With no money left, he went to Fat Bird for help. Fat Bird lent him the pills, and thanking him, Mu went back to his place. There he told the Little Leaf that he would now teach her the QI nourishing technique she always wanted to learn. Little Leaf was hesitant in accepting this as her body would be unable to practice it, but Mu assured her that with his training she would be able to nourish QI in no time.
Do you want to know the name of this manga, along with all the manga names of the recaps we did in our channel? How about also the chapter numbers our recaps end? You can simply ask the names in our Discord community for free or become a donor to get them all in one place. You can either be a donor in Patreon or be a member in our YouTube channel. Just scan this QR code or go to the link in the description to become a donor. Moreover, becoming a donor automatically makes you a VIP member of our Discord server with over tens of thousands of members.
Mu and Little Leaf discussed the information of the perfect version of QI practice over food. Surprisingly enough for Mu, Little Leaf understood all the theories he explained about her and answered perfectly when he tested her. He warned her that even though the theories might be easy to understand once a person started cultivating the techniques, it didn't work. Afterwards, they made a total of 4 QI refining pills. Mu wondered how much more Reiki he could gain by trying the perfect version of the pills. He tried and tested them and found their Reiki to be twice more than the ones sold on the market. This made him elated as he could sell these pills and use the money for his sister's hospital expenses. Later that night, Mu and Little Leaf practiced the QI technique. Mu was astonished to find out that Little Leaf had mastered the union of heaven and man that was required to draw QI techniques in her first practice session. Little Leaf voiced out that the process hadn't been hard at all, which startled Mu even more. He gave her a bracelet which could test the points she had gathered. Little Leaf declared to have gained 100 points. Mu was flabbergasted. Usually people used to gain only 20 to 30 points when they drew in QI technique. It had taken Mu himself almost half his semester to reach 100 points. That night, Little Leaf slept extraordinarily well due to the QI practice. While she slept, Mu worked till late to perfect his money-making scheme. Next day, the two of them practiced cultivation again, Even though Little Leaf's QI had slowed down, she was still increasing points at a rapid rate. After their practice, Mu went to meet Fat Bird, whose real name was Peng Liu. Peng was frustrated to be called out early in the morning but got curious when Mu surprised him with QI pills. Mu promised that these were no ordinary QI pills, as their effect was 3 times greater than the ones sold on the market. When Peng refused to believe this, Mu offered one of the pills to him. Peng took one in and was caught off guard by the immense power that the pill had. He was charged with overflowing energy, which surprised his mother as well. Peng marveled at these pills, which had the potential to increase their scores to 940 in a month. Mu was pleased with his reaction and assured Peng he would not be charging him for these pills in return for all his kindness. However, he asked Peng for some money in order to carry out his plan. After hearing Mu's plan, Peng transferred all his savings to Mu and supported him immediately. With that money, Mu gathered all the ingredients required to make the refining pills that he would sell. Mu and Little Leaf spent an entire weekend making these pills in addition to practicing their QI techniques. On Monday, Mu took some of these pills to school. He found Peng sitting drained in one corner, as he had taken 3 of the pills Mu had lent him in one go. Mu pleasantly mocked him, and then asked for his help in spreading the word about the QI pills he had made throughout the school. In no time, the pills had become the hot topic at school. Some students refused to believe it, calling it a scam, while others were curious to try it out. After the evening class was over, 100 students slowly gathered outside on the school grounds to see what the hype was about. They were all shocked to see that it was Mu who was distributing those pills, and that too for free. Peng was disappointed that not many people had showed up, but Mu wasn't bothered. He knew that after some people had tested its benefits, there would be more people willing to take the pills. After all, everyone wanted to pass the admission tests for a good cultivation university. Mu announced to everyone gathered that he would sell a box of those pills for 10,000 yuan, which left everyone baffled. Peng told Mu that the price was too expensive for the students to afford. However, Mu pointed out that those pills had the ability to increase the students' QI by 15 points in half a month, which would get them admitted to a good cultivation university. When everyone present started objecting to the price, Mu announced he would call the alchemist who manufactured those pills to lessen the price. Mu and Little Leaf had planned beforehand that she would use a recorded voice of an alchemist on call so that people could trust their pills. This seemed to work because as soon as the students present heard the professional voice coming out of Mu's phone, they were sure that this was not a fraud, as the voice was definitely that of a professional cultivator. Mu pretended to talk for a while on call, and then hung up. He announced that even though the alchemist had refused to lower the prices, he had agreed on giving a limited time sale offer. There would be a 20% off for all the students of that school, but only till the next day. After that, the prices would return to their original value. Mu decided that since he didn't have enough pills to hand out free that day to all of the students present, he would select a few of them by creating a group chat. Whoever received an envelope in that group chat would get the free pill, which they could try out at home. Soon the pills were distributed and everyone dispersed. Peng worriedly voiced out that the sale could affect their business, and they could suffer a loss, but Mu reassured him that no such thing would happen. He went home to find Little Leaf still making QI pills. He ordered her to rest while he took over. Later that day, he opened his phone to find 99 plus unread notifications. With the help of free publicity, his pills had blown up. That night, Mu slept extremely well. When Mu went to school the next day, he found everyone desperately waiting for him so they could buy his pills. Apparently, everyone had heard about the promising results of his pills from the students who had received the free pills. Mu and Peng were caught off guard by this crowd of demanding students, but Mu silenced them all. When the students had calmed down, Mu requested Peng to keep an eye on them and send them in one by one. He dealt with every student separately in a secluded room. They transferred money to his phone before receiving their pills. Most of them got 5 boxes of pills. The sales of the QI pills were booming and quickly attracted the attention of the teachers. After testing the pills out, they understood the hype around them and didn't stop the sale, rather helped to manage the order. In no time, Mu had run out of pills to sell, even though there were still a number of buyers left. The students were so desperate for these pills that they agreed on prepaying for them and receiving them later that afternoon. With this, Musu sold over 200 boxes of pills in a single morning and received pre-orders for 600 more. Some of the students secretly followed Mu to a clinic he was heading to. They intended to buy the pills directly from the alchemist himself, as they were sure Mu was unreasonably increasing the prices. Mu, however, had already left the clinic before the students could catch up to him. The students questioned the shopkeeper inside the clinic and were shocked to find out that the actual price of the pills was far lesser than Mu was selling them at. Mu called his sister's doctor to arrange the treatment that was more effective for the Little Leaf, irrespective of how expensive it was. He assured the doctor that he would be able to arrange the money timely. Just then, Peng called him urgently and told him how people in the group chat were demanding a refund. Apparently, Yuan Zheng and his group had exposed Mu and were selling pills at a far lesser rate now. Mu reassured Peng not to worry and announced everyone in the group chat to contact him if they needed a refund. He went back home and told Little Leaf about her new treatment procedure which would cure her in no time. This made Little Leaf beam with happiness. However, Mu was pissed that his system didn't give him any cost reminders and directly deducted the fees without any warning. Later, Mu went to the hospital to cover his sister's expenses and made appointments for a professional alchemist who would look over her. He still had $1 million left after those expenses and planned on using them to find more developments in his experiment. Mu was about to use his system when it was suddenly broken through. It notified Mu how he lacked certain information to proceed with the next stage of the system. Moreover, the system deducted $200K from his bank account as well. Musu went back to school and showed great kindness to Yuan Zheng and his group, who had badmouthed him and offered them a 20% discount. Yuan Zheng apologized to Mu and paid for his pills along with the rest of his group. Mu's act of virtue was spread throughout the school. Thanks to Peng, he was praised by students and teachers alike. Mu remembered to pay Peng as well for all of the work he had put in, which made Peng overjoyed. A few days later, Mu got a call from Little Leaf's hospital and took her for her appointment. He took a leave from school for some days to accompany Little Leaf. After a series of checkups, Little Leaf's doctor introduced the two of them to Ran Ling, the alchemist, who was to perform Little Leaf's surgery. After going over the safety measures, Ran Ling and the doctor left them for the night with the intention of starting the operation next day at 9. Peng came to visit them bringing fruits for the Little Leaf. The next day, Dr. Long successfully operated on Little Leaf and cured her off all her diseased cells. However, he told Mu how her QI was still weak and had no improvement whatsoever. He revealed that Little Leaf's makeup was quite different from the average person. Her condition was strange, and Dr. Ling didn't understand it properly as well. But the best news was that she was recovering, and it was more than enough for Mu. He spent the next few days taking great care of her. Soon there were only 3 days left for exams, and the school closed down for exam preparations. Peng revealed how a great chef had been invited at a restaurant to cook spiritual food for the students, which would help them in their exam preparations. After learning about this, the three of them decided to try the food out. They planned on ordering a special type of Shangfu chicken, which would give them more energy and remove any form of exhaustion in them. The waiter notified them that a fresh Shangfu chicken was going to be slaughtered by their chef, and if they wanted, they could watch it too. The three of them agreed. Surprisingly enough, just a glance of watching the chicken being slaughtered triggered Mu's system. Even if Mu didn't know the details, he could learn the technique of making Shangfu chicken and improve his system. However, watching the chicken get prepared didn't trigger his system further. The food arrived, and the three of them dug in. The moment Mu took a bite of the chicken, the money-eating system began to function. He realized he could use this recipe for his sister's condition. Mu asked Peng about the time he would be leaving for Quane Province for his exam, as he wanted to give him a gift before his departure. After leaving the restaurant, Mu and Little Leaf collected the ingredients to make the Shangfu chicken at home. Little Leaf didn't ask Mu how he knew the recipe and trusted her brother. As soon as they reached home, Mu busied himself in preparing the chicken. It smelled so good that the smell wafted throughout their apartment building, tempting the other residents. After trying the dish, Mu's Reiki had doubled to a 3. He happily realized he could sell this recipe at a good price with such an impact. The next day, when Mu and Little Leaf went to bid Peng farewell, Mu presented him with the chicken he had prepared. He told Peng how it was a gift from the supposed alchemist and was twice as effective as the chicken they had at the restaurant. Peng was overjoyed to receive this and thanked Mu. They wished each other luck and parted ways. After 2 days, exam day began. The exam hall was at a stadium filled with parents, teachers, and students alike. A strict rune circle was set up at the entrance of the stadium to ensure that no students cheated. Soon after Mu entered the stadium, an alarm rang notifying about the students who were cheating. Mu turned a deaf ear towards all the noise and stood confidently on his own spot. The invigilator soon introduced himself to the section and ordered them to bring out the results of their practice over the years. The exam had officially begun. The students were asked to cultivate the 7th set of QI techniques. The broadcast began, and 20,000 students started to practice together. Although Mu had practiced the perfect version of QI nourishing technique, he was no maverick, and practiced the 7th set of QI techniques just like all those around him. Outside the stadium, all the students were shown on live screens. There were live broadcasts of the examinations throughout the city. People cheered for their respective children through the live screens. Little Leaf was watching too, and prayed for her brother's success. Soon the exam was completed, and the results were announced. Shockingly, Mu had scored the first place, leaving him, and Little Leaf astonished. He had outperformed the student who had gotten second place by nearly 50 points. with a Reiki of 1042.5. Mu was telepathically contacted by the invigilator who offered him a place in his university. Mu promised to consider this. Coming out of the stadium, Mu was surrounded by groups of people. Reporters asked him to comment on his success for his juniors. Mu advised them to pay for their immortality, all the way leaving everyone confused. Later, he called Pang, who had passed his exam as well. When Mu reached home, he was embraced by Little Leaf. She had prepared quite a feast for celebrating his success as the champion for that year's exam. Both of them couldn't wait for their new life to start. Before going to Mount Qincheng for his university, he led Little Leaf to an enjoyable trip to Rongcheng City. They tried street food and visited the zoo as well. Mu took her to shopping as well, and after an eventful day, both of them returned exhausted to a hotel in Qincheng. After Little Leaf had slept, Mu prepared Shangfu chicken to sell the next day before the entrance exams. Next day in the early morning hours, students crowded the gates of Mount Qincheng's Cultivation University for their entrance exams. Mu was pleasantly surprised at how fancy the university was. After enough students had gathered, Mu announced on a microphone how he was selling Shangfu chicken for 80,000 per box and assured them that it would help all of the students get good grades. Hearing this, all the students desperately wanted a box of Shangfu chicken and transferred money to Mu instantly for a box. The students who tried this chicken praised it, which made more students want to buy it. After a while, Mu increased the price to 100,000. However, the students were desperate enough to purchase it still. Soon, Mu increased the price again to 120,000 but still managed to sell boxes of the chicken. The admission teacher from Qincheng, who was overlooking this scene, marveled at Mu's bravery to sell spiritual food at the admission location. He waved his hand and took a piece of the chicken from one of the students' hands. He broke it into several pieces and offered it to the other teachers present. The teachers were astounded by the perfect taste of the chicken. However, they decided to judge Mu's performance in the admission exams before reaching any conclusions about him. The invigilator for the exam decided to adjust the exam's difficulty level. Easier questions would be given to those who hadn't consumed any spiritual food. A little more difficult questions were set for students who had tried the chicken. However, for Mu, who had not only done business on the building's gate, but also disturbed peace by using a loudspeaker, the highest difficulty level questions were given. The other teachers had no objections to those modifications. Soon the gates were opened, and a teacher escorted the students towards a lake. There, a big snake which was going to carry them above the lake welcomed them all. The students were stunned to see the snake converse so freely with them. After riding the snake, they were ordered to pay for cable cars, which would transport them above the mountain. The candidates reached the exam site where an invigilator officially announced the commencement of the exam. Every student was suddenly surrounded by an exam space shaped by magic, where they were to perform their respective exams for 2 days. They could choose any major of their choice and practice frequently inside their space. That night, the teachers discussed how Mu was actually pretty miserable as he changed 7 majors and 20 questions in a short time span. Soon, 2 days passed and the exam was over. The students discussed their experience with each other and Mu realized that all the students there were pretty talented. Mu was confronted by a boy named Kevin who spoke in dubbed Chinese. The two of them introduced themselves. Back at the university, the teachers were overlooking Mu's record and discussing whether to admit him or not. When the teachers examined Mu's spirit rune, they were astonished to find its effective utilization rate to be 80%. The hammer he made was also nothing like the teachers had ever seen before, with many designs on it. Moreover, the elixir he made had a brilliant fragrance that took over them. Judging by how Mu's parents were ordinary people and had no cultivation background, the teachers concluded that Mu was clearly a genius. Half a day passed and the students received no updates from the teachers. Kevin told Mu he had an invisible beast who could go inside the palace and scout for them. But the invisible pet was discovered in no time, and Kevin was reprimanded for his misdoings. Soon the list of students who passed this sub-exam were announced. The students who got admitted and received recommendations for their majors were overjoyed. Mu's name was announced at the end. However, Mu was the only student who didn't get a recommendation for a major. The students casted curious glances towards him. The teacher ordered the students to go down the mountain after the result had been announced, but Mu was ordered to stay back. The teacher escorted Mu back to the palace where other teachers were present as well. He was given a cup of tea and was assured that he was not in any trouble. The teachers only had some questions for him. Kevin waited behind Mu and another kid named Junpei accompanied him as well. Kevin was elated to have company and asked June a number of questions which left June annoyed. Back in the palace, a teacher asked Mu the reason behind his style of rune being so extraordinary. Mu explained that he had always observed flaws and issues when he was studying runes and tried to overcome them when he was making his own. This made the teachers realize he had a unique perspective on things and offered him a place in their university. They also told him about prizes which students got after applying to their university. Mu politely promised to consider their request, leaving the teachers frustrated. Outside, Kevin was trying to figure out why Mu had been summoned by all the teachers. He tried to talk to Jun about it, but Jun was a total bore and barely spoke. Mu came out of the palace and was surprised to see the two of them waiting for him. Kevin welcomed him back, but it was Jun's presence that intrigued Mu more. He went up to him and congratulated him for scoring so well on his exams. Jun had been wanting to do the same. He had figured that since Mu had been summoned by the teachers and received lots of prizes, he must be an extraordinary student, and congratulated Mu as well. Mu was happy to know that Jun had no ill intentions towards him, and the three of them exchanged numbers. Soon, Jun made an excuse to slip away, leaving Mu and Kevin together. They were left alone, waiting for some teacher to take them down the mountain. Kevin got tired of waiting and showed Mu a flying broomstick he had. Kevin promised he was a skilled driver, but when they began to ride it, Kevin sped up, exceeding the speed limit. They were stopped and reprimanded by a traffic warden. Kevin decided it was best if Mu rode it instead, and was stunned to find out how efficiently Mu handled the broomstick. They reached Mu's hotel where Little Leaf was waiting outside for them. Kevin fell head over heels for her at the first glance. Musu and Kevin visited the nearby scenic areas along with Little Leaf. They enjoyed the landscapes and had a great time together. Later that night, Mu taught Little Leaf new chi techniques. Even though Little Leaf memorized the theory well, she failed to perform it practically. Even after trying several techniques, Little Leaf failed to carry them out. Just then, Kevin arrived, telling them he had a great grip on meditation practice. Using that, Little Leaf could improve her chi. They started practicing, and in no time, Little Leaf had mastered meditation. However, she was still disappointed that she couldn't perform the techniques Mu showed her. Mu patted her in order to console her, but as soon as he made contact with Little Leaf, her spiritual energy came onto him. This shocked Mu. He held her hand and told her to transfer her power to him. Her spiritual power came through him again. Mu concluded that his sister was like a living charger of power that could be run without plugging in. This amazed Mu, and he dragged Little Leaf for several experiments. After a number of experiments, Little Leaf was completely exhausted as her body had run out of spiritual energy. Mu advised her to rest, and he went on to work on this new development. After several hours, he sent a message to all the teachers from Chincheng University in a group chat. At some company, a worker alerted the director of an error in a website. More than 20 staff certification members were present, all graduates of different universities. It included experts, teachers, and students alike. The students received notifications on their phones about this website, which was being promoted by the teachers as well. The website was a shop that promised to sell them runes with an 80% effective rate. It assured the buyers that a single purchase would result in a miracle, and 10 purchases would guarantee effectiveness. The students were outraged by this website, declaring it to be a fraud. They decided unanimously that they would boycott it. However, some people still gave in to their temptations and ordered nonetheless. Mu woke up the next day to find that his website had been accepted by the teachers, and he had already received a lot of orders. However, every delivery address was for the school. Mu prepared the goods to be sent out. He had arranged a courier for payment on delivery. Elsewhere in a southern university, two friends had also ordered from Mu's website. They received their packages through the courier, but unfortunately both of them didn't get an 8% effective rune. However, another one of their classmates got 4 runes, all of which had an effective rate. On the other hand, Musu received so many orders for runes that he couldn't keep up. The next day, Mu, Kevin, and Little Leaf went to Mount Ma Scenic Spot to check the university there. Musu conversed with the representative of the university, who assured him he could keep Little Leaf with him as well if he studied there. However, when the representative turned to leave, Mu spotted he was wearing a wig and crossed that university off his list. His hair was more important to him. The next day, the three of them woke up early to witness the sunrise. They persisted in gaining the spiritual chi between the sky and the earth. After returning back, they hiked on the mountainside for some time. Mu found this to be the perfect time to consider making magical weapons. Kevin recommended him to work on the 9012 detachable defensive weapon that was constructed by runes. This weapon was shaped like a golden lotus. Since it was an assembled weapon, even if one of the runes was damaged, it would function well. Mu loved the idea and went to buy a golden lotus from the nearest shop. Once he was alone, Mu disassembled the lotus and planned to level it up all the way. Mu copied the 9 runes of the perfect version of the golden lotus. He then ordered corresponding components online. Once they arrived, he used the runes to create a complicated chi circuit board. Finally, Mu entered the crystal in the card slot. With this, he succeeded in making 2 magical defense weapons, which he called succulents. Mu gifted one of these to Little Leaf. Mu and Little Leaf went back to their home city, accompanied by Kevin, who was thrilled to be visiting their place. However, once back in their house, Mu noticed something missing from one of the shelves. To get Kevin out of the house, Moo announced that the food in their fridge was stale, and they would have to order out. Little Leaf noticed something was wrong and silently asked Moo about this. Moo secretly told her how their house had been broken into while they were away. The thief was most likely after his chi refining pills. Since the doors and the windows in their house had been untouched, it was pretty obvious that the thief was highly skilled. Moo decided that it would be best if they didn't notify the police about the theft, as the thief was most likely observing their moves from somewhere. However, he assured Little Leaf that since they had the defense weapon that Moo had created, they didn't have to worry about anything. Sure enough, as soon as night struck, the thief made his presence known. He had crept into Moo's room and planned on murdering him, but as soon as he slashed the body, he horrifyingly realized a trap had been set for him. He was thrown off by a great catastrophic blast. Before he could stand up, several repeated blasts struck him again. This firepower had the power to destroy a platoon. The thief hadn't expected Moo to be so ruthless at such a young age. In another room, Moo and Little Leaf were operating the succulent which was causing this destruction. It didn't give much damage but had a lot of highly insulting spells. Before he knew it, the thief began to heal because of the succulent's healing power. Moo intended to heal the thief and then torture him again and continue this process repeatedly to test the true potential of the succulent. The thief realized this tactic and refused to get up from his laying position. Moo prodded him to get up, but the thief was resolute in his decision and straight up refused. Just then, the thief noticed a powerful presence looming right above him. The powerful cultivator was not unknown. He was Wu Binwen, the deputy director of the medicine department at Quincheng University. Alongside him were a few of his doctoral students. Wu Bin was greatly impressed by how Moo had managed to defeat a cultivator like an ordinary person, even if he had used a weapon. Moo thanked him for arriving with his team and pointed towards where the thief was. He notified Wu Bin how the thief was a wanted fugitive who had committed crimes across the cities. Wu Bin declared that since the thief had attacked one of Quincheng University's possible students, he had attacked Quincheng University itself, and serious measures would be taken against him. But he still warned Moo that more people would be coming after his refining pills, and he ought to be more careful with them. Wu Bin suggested that if Moo wrote a thesis regarding improving the chi pills, their university could publish it. That way, if anyone else planned on doing something terrible to his pills, they would have to deal with the university first. Not only this, but Wu Bin also gave Moo a protective charm that would alert the university faculty if he was in danger. It was pretty obvious Wu Bin was desperate to have Moo as one of their students. When Moo reminded him how he wasn't even a part of their university yet, Wu Bin pointed out how Moo had contacted them for help. However, this was not the case. Soon, representatives from other universities began to show up at Moo's house as well. Apparently, Moo had contacted all of them for help when he got to know about the thief, as he wasn't sure who would turn up. He was flattered that everyone had shown up, but the teachers were disappointed to realize they weren't the only ones who had been summoned. Later, the group of teachers brought the thief to the police station. The thief was so terrified, he confessed to all the crimes he had ever committed. Back home, Moo told Little Leaf how he had decided on Mount Quincheng as his university. It was undoubtedly the best university and had one of the top 10 caves with abundant Reiki. If not there, where else could he possibly go? He offered Little Leaf Shuye tea, which was good for her body. Little Leaf reprimanded Moo for acting hesitant and unsure in front of the university's representative when he had been sure all that time. Moo tried to reason that by creating a competitive atmosphere, he ensured that all the universities would truly appreciate him and want him for themselves. Later that day, Moo put up the succulent he had created for sale as well. It created an uproar among the buyers due to its high price and effective working skills. Even though there was a lot of heat, no one actually bought the weapon, which bothered Moo greatly. In the next few days, other than completing his orders and cultivating, Moo spent his free time pre-reading his school material. He occasionally called Peng in between as well. Peng had been chosen to pursue wrestling at Mount Dangsai University, which suited him a lot. Peng mentioned he had bought a rune figurine for Moo, which would be arriving at him by delivery anytime soon. Moo didn't pay much attention to this. He was more invested in applying for his admission at Quincheng University. Wu Bin was overjoyed when he got to know that Moo had applied to Quincheng University, and he began boasting in front of all the teachers from other universities. 2 days later, the rune figurine that Pang had gifted Moo arrived by parcel. Following the instructions, Moo assembled the figurine and it began talking in an annoying, clingy voice. Moo adjusted its voice setting and ordered it to clean the room. Moo and Little Leaf weren't impressed much by this figurine, but Kevin had taken a great liking to it and began talking non-stop with it. The next morning, Wu Bin personally arrived to pick Moo up for his classes. Moo stepped out and was startled to see the countless bruises dotted on Wu Bin's face. It was pretty clear he had had a fight with someone before arriving at their place. When Moo voiced his concern for Wu Bin, he shunned it away, assuring him it was no big deal. Kevin, in a tearful state, came to bid farewell to Moo, and they promised each other to stay in contact. Wubin guided Mu and Little Leaf to their ride that was going to take them to Mount Quincheng. The ride turned out to be two majestic white birds with a tall, lean body. They had caught the attention of the nearby people as well, who were going crazy after its feathers. Wubin revealed that they were bi-winged birds. They were extremely loving spirit animals whose feathers had the ability to strengthen any social relationship, especially marriages, by promoting harmony. This explained why the people were so desperate for one of its feathers. Thankfully, they lacked fighting skills, or else the birds would have been stripped off all their feathers. Mu and Little Leaf got up on the birds and were pleasantly surprised by how comfortable they were. The grandmas who had been looking after the pair of them for years wept them goodbye as the two began to take off. In another frame, Kevin contacted Principal Lin with some undisclosed information. The bi-winged bird flew extremely fast, and in less than an hour, they reached Mount Quincheng. They did not land at the front of the mountain but circled to its back instead. There, Wubin guided them to the school gate and warned that even though barriers weren't visible to the eye, there was protection throughout the university. They could not go in or out without passing the gate. However, if they wanted, they could get registered by Mr. Ching, the university guard. Mu looked around but spotted no guard patrolling the area. Wubin saw the confusion on Mu's face and called out for Mr. Ching. A voice boomed out from behind the university plaque, and Mr. Ching appeared, angry that he had been woken up from his sleep. As they moved, Wubin gave them an overview of everything. He explained the uses of various areas in addition to the scenery that was along the way. Mu spotted the basketball court and was astonished to see the brawny, powerful players who were ferocious in their style of playing. All thoughts of joining the basketball team disappeared as soon as he saw them. He asked Wubin why they were playing in a foul manner. Wubin informed him that basketball cultivators' play was different from that of ordinary people. It wasn't wrong as long as magical weapons and spells weren't used. The only rule was that the props couldn't be damaged. Wubin also showed them the maintenance workers, one of them named Lily and another named Woohoo. They came across some seniors who were quarreling, and Wubin assured Mu that his seniors would suppress their strength whenever he played basketball or ping pong with them. Soon they came across teaching areas where mostly theory was taught for research. Most of the spells, cultivation, and other courses were carried out in the wild forests. Mu noticed how the concentration of spiritual energy in the teaching areas was one of the strongest points of Mount Quincheng University. Because of this, Mu and Little Leaf felt so comfortable in that place. Out of the blue, a scary dragon appeared, followed by some students who were running after it. Mu pushed Wubin to help the students, but Wubin wasn't bothered. He told Mu it was their homework to deal with the dragon, and he was going to leave the students to it. Later, Wubin directed Mu and Little Leaf to the dormitory area, and personally helped them get the keys and led them to the yard. He briefed them about how things worked in the dormitory and assured them that counselors would always be available for their help. Mu had 2 free days before his classes started, and there would be a welcome celebration 3 days later. With that, Wubin left the two of them in the courtyard. Mu-Su and Little Leaf were completely thrilled with the prospect of starting a new life. Little Leaf had always wanted to live and study like a normal person ever since her disease started. Mu was clear on this fact and promised her that she would become better after mastering the QI techniques he'll teach her daily. Mu shared information on the perfect version of QI practice over their dinner. He urged Little Leaf to ask him anything that confused her. Later in Mount Quincheng's university canteen, Miss Yang confronted Mu and gave him all the textbooks that were related to foundation building. Mu was shocked when he saw the big bundle of books. Miss Yang elaborated that the first part of these books was the theoretical basis, and it was recommended to focus on the theory. She further informed him about the university's official WeChat account, where important announcements were constantly being posted, like if some area was being used for some experiment and so on. Mu downloaded the app in an instant. He was surprised to see that not only homework, examination rooms, experiment sites, etc. were in that app, but they could also check where there were spiritual birds nearby. Moreover, it had posts about recruitment, item sales, and student assignments as well. Miss Yang reminded Mu to pay his tuition for that year at the finance office that afternoon. Before he left, Mu asked Miss Yang how many people on average failed to finish the foundation building within 3 years. Miss Yang told him there weren't many, but every year about a dozen students failed. If they didn't make it by the end of their 3 years at the university, they were discharged with only a completion certificate. She pointed at a student in the cafeteria who was in a disheveled state and told Mu he was one of such students. Suddenly an idea clicked in Mu's mind. If he could help someone complete their foundation building, they would certainly be willing to pay him for it. But for that, he would first need to successfully lay a foundation. Otherwise, no one would trust him. After leaving the cafeteria, Mu took his sister back to their yard and began to study the foundation building textbook. At 3 o'clock, he went to pay his tuition fees at the finance office. He spotted a beautiful Luan bird and decided to settle for it to take him to the finance office rather than the bi-winged bird. On his way, however, the bi-winged bird appeared out of nowhere and began fighting with the Luan bird. A passerby told Mu how they loved fighting, and he should just ignore it. After paying his fees, Mu met with some of his seniors and made connections. At night, he studied and practiced excessively, and by noon of the next day, he had perfected his new invention. This was a perfect version of a figurine that could learn to make instruments for him. Mu had been facing a lack of production since he opened his online store. This was because Little Leaf couldn't learn how to make first-level instruments and other treasures, leaving Mu burdened with all the work. Now, with this figurine to aid him, Mu would flourish in his business without having to work too hard. The figurines were also loyal to their master, so Mu wouldn't have to worry about his information getting revealed to anyone. With a few more modifications and updates, Mu and Little Leaf were ready to activate these figurines. The figurines greeted Mu in an active voice. Mu decided to test them and ordered them to draw runes. Both of the figurines were done in no time, and Mu was pleased with the results. This was another huge step forward in his production schedule. Over the night, the figurines performed various tasks for Mu without even being ordered. They gave soup to Little Leaf and lit a burning peach blossom pill to refresh their minds and eliminate fatigue. Mu was pleasantly surprised by their work efficiency. He deduced that because of their update, the rune figurines could make their own judgments based on observation and carry out tasks accordingly. The only negative was that they were too small, but other than that, their service was exceptional. The next day, Mu got a call from Miss Yang, who reminded him about the orientation that was taking place the next day. Mu found the opportunity and asked Miss Yang where the refining room was. After all, if he didn't start refining soon, none of his products could be shipped out. Miss Yang guided him to where it was, but warned him that it was costly. The refining room looked like a normal small bungalow with a little bit of a factory area. Inside, the master assured Mu that the furnace and the equipment were always working and he needn't worry about anything, but he warned him that if someone tried to damage the equipment on purpose, the rune circle would issue a warning, so he must stay away from any mischief. Once inside, Mu was startled by how advanced and amazing the refining rooms were. He silently promised himself that after he had made enough money in the future, he would buy one as well. Without wasting a minute, Mu brought out his figurines and ordered them to begin working. Xiao and Ami, the rune figurines, created 4 multi-purpose hammers in 4 hours. Mu busied himself as well and started reading the textbooks. After a while, the students were getting impatient because Mu was taking a lot of time inside his refining room. They were sure he was ruining the equipment inside and barged in without any warning. Thankfully, by then Mu had wrapped up his work and hidden the figurines and the hammer in his bag. Mu had lunch with his sister, and then requested a courier to deliver the spiritual runes and multi-purpose hammers the figurines had made. After that, he got ready to attend the orientation and made his way to the school auditorium. He was surprised to see how crowded the auditorium was and figured that a lot of freshmen must have applied that year. Suddenly, he was called out by someone. He turned to find Kevin and Junpei waving at him from a distance. Mu was alarmed to find them there and demanded to know what they were doing at the orientation. Kevin revealed that he had transferred to Keecheng University. He had given the school a lab, which had made the principal so happy that he immediately approved his application. Mu was shocked once again at how sickeningly rich Kevin was. Junpei had transferred as well to pursue a major in calligraphy and spirit painting. Suddenly, a pleasant musical sound caught the attention of all the students, and they stopped talking. A group of teachers who appeared to be very powerful entered, accompanied by an old, joyful man who was the principal of the university. The principal gave them a brief speech about their courses, which also included sword flying. Sword flying was a mandatory course for all majors. Every November, all the universities from that province held the flying sword competition, and the contestants were all the freshmen of that year. Even though Mount Keecheng had always been a strong contender for the championship, they had been unlucky to get the championship trophy for the past few years. The president motivated all the freshmen to perform well in the championship that year and promised them a fair reward for it as well. This intrigued every student. Even rich students like Kevin were tempted by these rewards. After the orientation, Mu was rounded up by the guard who had offered them bamboo, Uncle Xiong. Uncle Xiong told Mu to bring Little Leaf to see the guards on the weekend as she was still a little weak. They would give her something to recuperate her energy. Mu thanked Uncle Xiong and promised to meet them on Saturday. Kevin and Junpei were shocked to see how frank Mu was with the panda, who was known to be hot-tempered. Mostly Kevin was amazed by how capable the panda was and called the principal to see if it was on sale. He ended up getting scolded, and the other two decided to ignore him. Later, the 3 of them went to explore Mount Keecheng's library, which was a magnificent building. When they entered after showing their school badges, the 3 of them were caught off guard by how vast the library was. An assistant appeared and guided Mu with how the library worked. After helping him out, the assistant requested Mu to rate it, as its monthly rewards were correlated with the ratings it received. Mu was intrigued by this and asked whether it ever got some bad reviews. The assistant told him that occasionally some students gave bad reviews out of spite, but promised that the bad reviews were never actually because of poor service. Mu mischievously told the assistant to change its rating to rates that wouldn't affect it much, like satisfied, quite satisfied, very satisfied, etc. The assistant suddenly became still and completely blanked out after listening to Mu's idea. In a second, it had rebooted its system and updated its rating scale. He thanked Mu for such an amazing idea and promised that all the book spirits in the library would always do their best to make his visit in the library as convenient as possible. Mu modestly shunned the praise away and made the assistant promise it would never reveal to anyone that it was Mu who suggested the rating scale modification. Kevin and Junpei accompanied Mu back to his dormitory and greeted Little Leaf. After having tea, Mu saw them off and called Miss Yang to inquire about the details of the flying sword competition. Miss Yang revealed that the contest was divided into two parts. One was to finish modifying swords before the contest, and the other was to fly the prescribed route. Mount Qincheng had lost the previous year because Mount Amei had more freshmen who had successfully cultivated the foundation. Mu silently deduced that if he made sure to pay his way to successfully grow his foundation and use absolute strength to crush his competitors, he could win easily. When he went back home, the rune figurine notified Mu that many customers had proposed that they create an official site and forum for their online shop. Mu pondered over this and figured that with an official website, his brand would become legitimate, and it would be more convenient for further promotion. He decided to go for it, and the announcement was posted very quickly on the website. The first batch of orders was fulfilled by Xiao and Ami. Not only this, but they had improved the design of the website and responded to the buyers faster. It looked a lot better than when Mu was managing it. That evening, Mu had his freshman welcome party, and he went with Little Leaf by his side. Every dish Musu ate at the party activated his system, and he was almost blinded by the flow of data. Mu had a blast with Kevin and Junpei at the party until late at night. In the blink of an eye, however, school started with the first lecture being on foundation theory. As soon as the teacher, Mr. Hu, appeared in the class, every student registered for an assessment. Mu was disappointed by this as he thought he was the only one who wanted to apply for the evaluation. Nevertheless, he and Junpei registered for the exam as well and were led to their tables. These tables were built in an interesting manner. They obstructed the view of the table next to a person to prevent cheating. Mr. Hu laid out the rules before the exam started. The students were severely warned not to cheat, as it could make their grades invalid and lead them to do hard labor in the garden for several days. With that, the exam began, and Junpei silently made a resolution to beat Mu in the exam. Junpei was sure he could beat Mu, as he had been learning foundation cultivation since he was a child. He was done in no time and was confident with his performance, but to his great dismay, Mu had already finished before him. Junpei sighed heavily and gave up hope of ever beating Mu. Mr. Hu was amazed by how quickly Mu and Junpei had finished their papers. He began reviewing them and found Junpei's answers to be really good. But it was Mu's paper that struck him because he had answered each question perfectly. After everyone had completed their exam, Mr. Hu announced who had passed and who had failed. The ones who had passed didn't need to take his class any further and could begin the application of Cultivation Foundation with Mr. Shu. Mu was confronted by Mr. Hu, who had a lot of questions for him. They had a heated discussion, and Junpei picked up a lot of new information while listening to them. Mr. Hu was so impressed by Mu and his capabilities that he offered Mu to join their recruitment team and carry on as a teacher. The students who were listening to their talk were taken aback by this. However, Musu politely rejected Mr. Hu's invitation and finished the remaining assessment with Junpei. At noon, both of them went to explore the Cultivation Foundation arena, which was a grand, spectacular place. Junpei mentioned he had an arena at home as well, much to Mu's shock. He thought of buying the arena from Jun, but shunned the thought away before it could take over him. Since he had passed the Cultivation Foundation exam, Mu returned the big bundle of books back to Miss Yang. Miss Yang told Mu how she was going to work on a document for the multi-purpose hammer she had gotten from the Immortality store and send it out. She marveled over the hammer and spiritual runes she had gotten from his shop and mentioned how the shipments were coming faster as well. Mu was troubled by this revelation, as he had done nothing to increase the shipment and processing rate. He excused himself and went back home to confront the figurines. The figurines became extremely worried when they saw the look of confusion on Mu's face and began to apologize, but Mu was anything but angry. He was pleased to see that not only were they improving product quality, but bringing in positive responses from customers as well. In the afternoon, Mu had his first lesson of basic motor skills for flying swords. The teacher for that class, Mr. Ching, told the students to sign up for the assessment, which was full of automated test systems. The students only had to act as they were asked to. He guided them to the exam center and then waited outside to see who the first one to come out would be. 30 minutes later, Mu was the first one to appear outside. Mr. Ching was amazed by his performance as well and offered him to join the Flying Sword Major. Mu turned down this request as he already had 4 majors. He was given a driving license by Mr. Ching, without which he would not be able to practice sword flying. In the next few days, courses in medicine, cuisine, weapons repair, and rune arrays started one after another. Hundreds of freshmen were divided into small classes and studied individually. In his first pharmaceutical class, the teacher gave the class a task to catch a ginseng. Whoever caught it could have it as a reward. The students were thrilled by the prospect of owning a ginseng, but the teacher warned them it wasn't easy to catch at all. As soon as it was released, the ginseng zoomed past the students who ran in a frenzy to catch it. A student came close to it, but the creature disappeared as soon as it was caught. The teacher pointed out that if a ginseng was in the wild, it would dig into the ground, making itself difficult to find. Suddenly, a series of incidents happened quickly. Mu was too far away from the ginseng, so he couldn't catch it, but in an instant, the ginseng was right in his face. Without any warning, something exploded right in front of Mu, who got blinded by the mist. When Mu opened his eyes, the ginseng had disappeared again and shifted to some other place. Something felt extremely off. The ginseng wanted to escape first, but he was blocked by the teacher's spell before he could leave. This time it managed to escape so far, but the teacher wasn't doing anything about it. The other students sensed something was wrong as well. Even after running for so long, they had returned to the same place they started from. Mu decided to check the book for clues, and found out that the mist released by the ginseng was an illusion enhancement. They were not in the real world, rather they were trapped in the magic enchantment of the ginseng. The teacher confirmed this and informed everyone that the only way to leave the illusion barrier was to smash it to pieces. For that, everyone's strength must be gathered and focused on the firepower to make an opening. Mu pointed out that the barrier must be weakened by weakening spells first. While everyone carried this out, Mu secretly took out the succulent, as he was left with no other option. He used it to penetrate the barrier and succeeded in doing so. The students took this as an opening and increased their firepower. Mu prepared to land a blow, and with a single punch he blasted the barrier away, leaving the other students dumbfounded. As soon as the barrier dropped, Mu found the ginseng on the other side weakened by his spells. He easily caught it and victoriously presented it to the teacher. The teacher kept his promise and gave the ginseng to Mu to keep. He silently analyzed Mu's performance, which was brilliant. Even though he used a magic weapon, his ability to locate the weak point was amazing. The teacher explained to Mu how the ginseng was to be dealt with and warned him not to untie the rope that bound the ginseng, or else it would escape. Mu only wanted to know how the ginseng could be used to support his family. The teacher, however, gave him no specific answer and promised that it would be discussed in future lessons. After the class was over, a few rare birds flew over, telling the students to get on board if they were going to take the spiritual cooking class. Kevin was seated on one of these birds, and both the boys rejoiced at the prospect of having the same class. Mu sat behind Kevin's bird, and they took off to class. They met their cooking class teacher, Mr. Wang, who was going to familiarize them with various ingredients in their first class. Mr. Wang warned the students that they would enter a field of 10,000 beasts who would bully them if they didn't stay close to him. The class was taught in the field of 10,000 beasts and was finished, leaving everyone feeling exhausted. Mu returned back to his dorm extremely tired and was instantly fussed over by the rune figurines. Mu excitedly showed Little Leaf the ginseng he had won and ordered Xiao and Ami to plant the ginseng. They had ginseng soup that afternoon, and it tasted delicious. Mu then started studying and was annoyed that he had to study advanced mathematics even though he was becoming a cultivator. It wasn't only tedious and difficult, but also very significant for his courses. In the days that followed, besides practicing in the classes, Mu spent the rest of his time reading the basic books needed to learn foundation building. After increasing all basic texts to 10 points, Mu once again tried to break through building foundations. It worked, but there was only a breakthrough plus 1. Mu was furious with his progress and decided to try again, but the breakthrough was much more expensive than upgrades and cost 2 million. He went to the library to find himself a foundation establishment array blueprint to help him out. He was welcomed by almost all the assistants working in the library who were still grateful for what he had done for them. The assistant told him that the blueprint he was looking for was extremely expensive. However, if he intended to build a foundation by studying the foundation establishment array, the assistant could tell him how to pick the best foundation room. The assistant revealed that the closer the foundation room was to the gate of the foundation building, the higher the quality of energy obtained will be. This was because the gate of the foundation building was where the supervisor who provides the spiritual energy was laid in. That was why when picking a room, Mu should keep in mind to to pick a room near the gate rather than the one far away. Mu thanked the assistant for the idea and went straight back to his dormitory's courtyard. There he ordered various supplies for making incense sticks via the school's mobile app and immediately called the teachers for a leave of absence. After that, he left for the foundation building field, where he found Junpei present as well. Junpei revealed that he had been there for 3 days, and if nothing went wrong, he should be able to complete foundation building within a month. Mu appreciated his hard work and silently told him to choose a room closer to the gate for better results as energy flow was much more improved there. However, a guy who had overheard Mu told the both of them that the place near the gate was slightly weaker than the other rooms. Junpei introduced him to Mu. His name was Zhao, and he was the freshman's leader for foundation building. When Junpei began to introduce Mu, Zhao interrupted him, revealing he already knew who Mu was because of all the teachers who praised him. He politely demanded to know how Mu knew so much about the foundation field. Mu sheepishly assured him that he was only following his gut feeling and didn't have any sort of expertise on the matter at all. However, Junpei knew that Mu was making excuses as he didn't want to talk much in front of Zhao. He was sure Mu definitely had a much deeper reason for mentioning the room near the gate. After Mu had left, Junpei told Zhao he also thought the foundation room near the gate was better and was going to change his place. This left Zhao baffled. In the foundation room, Mu began working, intending for a full performance with full potential. He concentrated on the incense point and got rid of all distractions. With this, he adjusted the state of his mind. In no time, Mu began to feel the energy flow and activated the magic array. Meanwhile, in the other rooms, the energy seemed to have diminished for everyone. Everyone came out from their respective rooms and demanded to know what was going on. A commotion began to stir. All the students pestered Piggy, who was the assistant for the foundation field, to explain why there was suddenly no spiritual energy. Piggy checked and confirmed there was a real problem present and reported the issue. He ordered all of them to return home and wait there till someone from the university came and fixed the issue. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. The freshmen, including Zhao and Junpei, gathered to discuss their progress in foundation building. Jun briefed everyone on how he was going to enter his isolation stage in a day and officially start building his foundation. He strived to complete the foundation building within a week. Everyone marveled over his speed and dedication. Someone suddenly mentioned Mu. Apparently, Mu hadn't left the foundation room ever since he entered it 3 days ago. They were not ready to consider the possibility that Mu had already completed foundation building. As if on cue, Mu came out of his room looking fresh and alive. Junpei demanded to know if he had completed his foundation building. Mu sheepishly unfolded that he had. This caused a stir among the students. Junpei realized that no matter how much he tried to compete with Mu, he just possibly couldn't reach his level. Nevertheless, he congratulated Mu for his success in building his foundation in 3 days. Mu was alarmed when he came to know how long it had taken him. He was totally immersed from the moment he began to lay the foundation, and it was like he was drunk on spiritual energy now. Junpei came to accept the fact that he would have to settle for second place now. Mu began to boost his morale but was interrupted by the noise of the maintenance team working. Junpei told him how the energy supply for the foundation establishment became weaker in the last few days and was being repaired. This triggered something in Mu, and he confronted Zhao with an idea. Much to Zhao's surprise, Mu advised them to try swimming and fitness if they were interested in learning about foundation building training. When his classmates showed their confusion and distrust, Mu promised that he would give training and tutoring to anyone who failed to build a foundation. They'll work hand in hand to help build a foundation successfully. Mu set up tutoring deals to aid his classmates, but they weren't very welcoming of it and politely refused his help. They believed he was getting snobbish just because he finished foundation building in 3 days. However, once Mu left, all of them began fighting for the room he had been practicing in. Outside, Mu suddenly began to feel dizzy because of all the spiritual energy he had gathered. Piggy noticed his condition and advised him not to push himself much. His body was a temple and should be cherished rather than being destroyed. Piggy gave Mu the recipe for an awakening soup that would help his condition and told him to learn the energy scattering method as well. Mu used a bird to get back home and was welcomed by Little Leaf. She became worried when she saw his disheveled state and demanded to know if he had been drinking for the past 3 days. Mu assured her it was because he had gained too much spiritual energy, and after a while began dissipating energy in the courtyard. He also gave the rune figurines the soup recipe Piggy had given him to be prepared for him. Little Leaf was still panicked because of Mu. More than 10 minutes later, the energy that Mu forced out had formed a mist in the courtyard. After about half an hour, all the excess spiritual energy was dissipated, and Mu's body was much more comfortable. He stood up feeling better, but passed out in a moment. Mu woke up to find Kevin looming over him. He looked around to find himself in a hospital room. Kevin unfolded how he had slept for a day after fainting in his courtyard. He also told Mu how he had gotten a feeling when Mu was going to wake up and had left his class to meet. This was because he had a little experience with drunken spirits. Once Mu's physical quality had improved, the speed of cultivation would increase, but for the time being, his body was unable to handle it. Mu noticed that Little Leaf hadn't been there in the room to welcome him. Kevin told him that she had absorbed some of his Reiki and got drunk as well. She was sleeping in the other room with Miss Yang taking care of her. Mu Su was shocked to hear this, and got out in a hurry to see his sister. Miss Yang reassured Mu that Little Leaf would be fine in no time, and then praised him for managing to build his foundation in no time. She further advised him to fight someone at the training ground so that he could let everything out and recover faster. Mu thanked her for her advice and then asked her for an audacious request. He wanted her to assist him in determining which seniors would need to leave the school with a completion certificate if they couldn't cultivate a foundation. He basically wanted their contact information to set up a tutoring class for them. Miss Yang pointed out that everyone had their own unique way of building foundation, but Mu still wanted to give it a go. Miss Yang readily complied when Mu promised to pay her for doing this. Mu stepped outside to see Miss Yang off, but stopped in his tracks when he saw the scene in front of him. Countless spirits and birds were gathered in the courtyard. Miss Yang explained that these spirits were drawn to and drank from the Reiki Mu had emitted. Before leaving, Miss Yang advised Mu to arrange a cultivation mentor for himself before things got out of hand. After Miss Yang left, Mu noticed that his ginseng had become drunk with his Reiki as well. Later, he called Wubin to help him choose the best cultivation mentor for him. Wubin cut the call off and silently fumed. He wouldn't let anyone steal Mu from him. The cultivation mentors were all gathered in a conference room. Wubin continuously persisted that he would look over Mu completely and wouldn't let anyone teach him. This caused the other mentors to retaliate. They reasoned that Wubin couldn't possibly teach him majors like spell formation or weapon repair. The academic affairs office staff intervened and pointed out that since Mu was a level 1 cultivator, he couldn't be their student yet. The teachers were all in charge of level 3 cultivators, but the mentors paid no mind to this and continued fighting over Mu. Back at Mu's yard, Kevin confessed to Mu that he hadn't found any team that would accept him for group projects. According to them, he talked a lot and was a distraction. The two of them discussed this issue for a while and then Kevin left. Mu had lunch with Little Leaf, who was gradually getting better. At night, Mu received an email from Miss Yang. The email had information about a guy named Junji Lin. He was named the year's genius when he was only a freshman in university. Unexpectedly, he hadn't yet cultivated a foundation after all those years. Mu contacted Lin and introduced himself, but Lin cut the call before Mu could even complete his line. Mu called him again to be bombarded with his warnings. Lin threatened to take serious action against Mu as he thought Mu was one of those callers who promoted their products. Mu assured him he wasn't going to promote any product. Instead, he explained how he was a freshman who had successfully built his foundation in 3 days. Lin recognized who Mu was and apologized for his outburst. Mu shunned the apology away and offered to help Lin with his foundation building. This triggered Lin. He made it clear he wasn't interested in taking any tuition classes from his junior. However, before Lin got a chance to hang up, Mu quickly told him to adjust his breathing rhythm to 9 deep and 1 shallow breath the next time he cultivated his foundation. With this, Mu hung up the call. Lin thought to try out what Mu had suggested to him, but then he decided against it and ignored Mu's advice. After all, he had tried a lot of training techniques before, all of which were way more legit than Mu's technique. On the other hand, after hanging up, Mu called all the others on the email list. Some seniors did not respond to Mu's calls. He gave specific advice based on the traits of the seniors who answered his phone. Mu was sure all the seniors would come back to him once they tried his techniques. Lin, who was in the foundation arena, failed yet another session of foundation building. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch the inspiration for foundation building. As a last resort, he decided to try out Mu's method even though it appeared unconventional. He started doing exactly what Mu had told him. At first it appeared as if nothing was happening, and Lin silently cursed Mu. However, in a minute, he finally found the inspiration he was looking for. Turned out that Mu's method actually worked. The inspiration disappeared in an instant. But now that Lin had seen Mu's method worked, he started once more and succeeded again. Lin couldn't believe this. Now he had to call Mu again to get more methods to proceed further. Mu's number was busy, and Lin figured he was calling other students to help them with foundation building as well. He called one of his friends who was going to fail in foundation building like him, and he confirmed that Mu had contacted him as well. They exchanged information, and were surprised to find that Mu had given them different advice according to their personal strengths. Lin called Mu again and completely began fawning over him. He also asked for more pointers that could help him strengthen his foundation. He was willing to pay any price for it as well. Mu agreed and told him to meet at the foundation arena the next day for personal training. With this, foundation coaching classes officially started. Later that day, Lin called Miss Yang intending to inquire about Mu. He was curious as to how Mu knew about him, and more importantly, how his methods were working. Miss Yang admitted that she had given his contact info to Mu, but she guaranteed that Mu was no doubt a genius. He was truly terrifying in his strength, and even postgraduate mentors were fighting for him. This left Lin dumbfounded. He had completely underestimated Mu because he was a freshman. But Lin slowly realized that the more capable Mu was, the more effective his coaching would be. Next day, when he went to the foundation arena to meet Mu, he was alarmed to find the whole courtyard crowded. These were all the students Mu was going to tutor. Mu appeared a while later with Little Leaf riding a spirit bird. Without wasting a minute, Mu began to explain the charging standards. Mu had divided the charging standards in 3 categories: VIP 1, VIP 2, VIP 3, with VIP 3 being the most expensive category. But as long as Mu's instructions were as effective as the night before, the money the students spent would be worth it. And everyone wanted to try to succeed one more time. With all of this in mind, Lin and a girl named Ling Xun purchased the VIP 3 package that was worth 4 million. Mu decided to start training with Ling first. He ordered her to begin cultivating so he could judge where she needed to be corrected. Ling hesitated to do so first, but after everyone motivated her to start, she began to activate her cultivating foundation. As soon as she ignited the incense of tranquility, Mu told her to stop. He pointed out that her tranquility incense wasn't effective anymore, as she had become more or less resistant to it over the years. At this point, Mu made up his mind to promote his immortality shop. He told everyone present about the high-quality tranquility incense that the immortality shop sold. All of them hadn't heard about the tranquility shop before and checked it out. To their surprise, the tranquility incense had many positive reviews on the website. Ling decided to buy a pack of 10 and then started cultivating her foundation again. This time, Mu gave her some advice silently, and she began to work on it. In not time, Ling had reached the state and actually charged through her foundation. Everyone was left speechless by this, and their confidence in Mu increased. Next, Mu tutored Lin in his foundation building. Apparently, Lin had to correct his basics as well in order to properly cultivate his foundation. With the help of Mu's tips, Lin began to build his foundation proficiently. The other students were now sure that Mu was a sign of power because he had effortlessly helped both Lin and Ling to build their foundation. They began applying for the VIP 3 package as well for the best results. Just then, Piggy came up and told Mu he had a call from Mr. Wubin. Wubin appeared on a video hologram and demanded to know where Mu was busy all the time. When he came to know that Mu was helping students build their foundation, he reprimanded Mu for wasting his time. Wubin urgently ordered Mu to meet him at the Department of Medicine as he wanted to discuss something important. Mu apologized to the other students for leaving, and he and Little Leaf rode the bi-winged birds to get to the medicine department. Little Leaf revealed that she knew what the birds thought about by reading their eyes and expressions. She had been gaining knowledge lately by spending time at the library. Soon they reached the department where they were greeted by a senior who was Wubin's student and assistant. She introduced herself as Yue Shu and led them to Mr. Wubin's office. When they entered his office, Wubin was seated in an injured state getting patched up by a nurse. Mu was completely caught off guard by seeing Wubin in such a state. Wubin wasn't bothered in the least and declared himself to be perfectly fine. He lightly mentioned how he had fallen during a meeting resulting in all the injuries. The scene changes to another office, where another injured teacher was confiding in his pupil. He fumed over how Wubin tricked everyone and drugged their drinks during their meeting. This was Wubin's specialty. He excelled in tricks and talisman formation, and was similar to Mu in that sense. The pupil was curious as to why Wubin was so invested in Mu all the time. Back at Wubin's office, Wubin informed Mu about his new tutor who would be guiding him from then onwards. This would be Yue Shu, the assistant who had brought them to the office. From that day, Yue Shu would guide Mu in professional study and practice, while Wubin would assign him tasks to monitor him. Finally, Mu would be welcomed to join a medicinal herb exchange forum that was taking place next month. Mu thanked Wubin for all his efforts, and then they left to begin training in Mu's courtyard. After tea, Yue Shu instructed Mu on the cultivation method of a first-level cultivator, known as the spiritual energy eating method. The set of exercises can only be practiced after the foundation has been successfully established. Mu Su and Little Leaf were shocked after hearing the description of the exercise. Yue explained the method in detail, and Mu got the hang of it in no time. Yue asked him to carry it out so she could see how much he grasped. However, she was left completely dumbfounded when Mu perfectly performed it before her eyes. After praising him, Yue warned him to never boast about his abilities as the path ahead would be fraught with difficulties. She also told him about the credit system that was used in their school. The credit requirements for entering the school and building foundation were not stringent. However, after successfully laying the groundwork or remaining in the school for a year or two, the requirements for credits increase as one gains knowledge of spells and other subjects. If Mu was a first-level cultivator right then, he would have to figure out how to earn more credits after cultivating. Otherwise, by the end of his semester, his credits would be insufficient, and he would be punished. This left Mu frightened. He vaguely remembered how he had heard about a senior whose entire body was charred to black because he was burned in a boiler for his punishment. Yue Shu assured him that credits could also be earned by publishing papers and actively participating in various school activities. This was all updated on their school app. Mu checked the app, but was triggered by something. He wondered who would bother to take on such tasks once more after earning enough credits for the semester. He decided to talk to the person who set tasks and give them some advice. He called Wubin and told him that after reading their school's credit task system, he had some suggestions to make. He started explaining in detail that if students had to be motivated, the value of credits should be increased. Even a prize pool could be set at the end, which would lead many people to complete more tasks each month in exchange for better rewards, if the rewards were alluring. Mr. Wubin was pretty impressed by whatever Mu had to say and appreciated him for his contribution. Mu cut the call and turned around to find Little Leaf practicing the method of consuming energy. Mu decided to master the spiritual eating method and quickly internalized and mastered comprehensive training material of the fishing toad swallowing technique. He then handed Little Leaf this new set of exercises to see if she could remember them this time. Little Leaf was able to practice it, and the effect was better than before. Mu was pleased to see her progress and began practicing with her as well. Soon, 2 different croaking sounds came from the house. After a week of hard training, both of them had successfully mastered the fishing toad swallowing technique. Mu visited the foundation field for the next few weeks to instruct the students, but a rumor had started to grow as well. Apparently, everyone had come to know about how Mu, a freshman, was teaching his seniors to build a foundation. People mocked the seniors for being so desperate that they resorted to taking help from a junior. The suggestions that Mu had given about the credit rewards had been updated on the school app as well. Now 1 or 2 large prizes could be won from the prize pool, which piqued the students' interest when they saw it. Some people were willing to spend credits to draw a lottery. Teachers from all departments were pleasantly surprised to learn that the students' enthusiasm had greatly increased. But the school app hadn't revealed the name of the person who had given this idea to the school. This made the students die from curiosity, as they wanted to sincerely thank this anonymous person who had completely changed the task system. Credits could now be exchanged for rewards, which could be exchanged for practice necessitates in the credit store, eliminating the need to spend any extra money. In this regard, the task system and credit hours had aided many students. So naturally, there were many people who exclaimed that they wanted to invite this anonymous person to a meal or a drink, but Mu did not dare reveal that he was the classmate who did not wish to be identified. Wubin told Mu that in addition to all of this, his store's products would be added to the credit mall and prize pool, leading to his profit. 2 more days flew by, and students began skipping their classes to complete their tasks. To prevent this, the school announced on the school's app that the credits previously earned by these students had been deducted. Later, Junpei came out of his room in the foundation building, having successfully cultivated his foundation in about 6 days. The same day, a commotion was caused in the foundation building. This was because Lin and Ling's foundation was finally successful after 3 years. The students were completely in shock that Mu had transformed the complete narrative of foundation building. Ling, who had been unable to establish a successful foundation for several years, succeeded immediately after receiving his instructions. Junpei, who was unaware of all of this, was filled in by a boy. The boy and many others were so sure that it was a coincidence that Lin had managed to cultivate her foundation, because there was no way Mu's training could have been this much effective. Junpei, however, knew it wasn't a coincidence, but rather a sign of strength. Mu not only succeeded in laying the foundation for himself, but also coached others to do so. Junpei sadly realized that the difference between him and Mu was only getting further away. After Lin and Ling, Zhezheng also succeeded in cultivating his foundation. With this, the students couldn't consider it to be a coincidence anymore. They all collectively decided to go to Mu Su's house to thank him, but found no one there. Ling called Mu to ask him where he was, but Mu was out of school. Ling told him that the students had brought him gifts as a thank you present. This flattered Mu, and he sheepishly told Lin to throw these gifts out into his yard. Mu cut the call, and he and Little Leaf made their way to Uncle Bear. They met Uncle Bear deep in the forest. Mu reminded him how he had promised to give Little Leaf something good that would replenish her body. Uncle Bear remembered his promise and took them under the archway of Mount Qicheng University. There he built up a big portal which scared Little Leaf a little. Uncle Bear led them through this portal that transported them to an unknown place. When Mu and Little Leaf gained consciousness again, they were astonished to find themselves at an army base surrounded by weapons and soldiers. Mu frantically wondered if this place, which had abundant Reiki, was one of the top 10 caves.
Don't forget to like and comment for the next part. Join our Discord for the name of the book and subscribe for more videos from us.